I should have known that going back to Africa after so many years would stir up emotions I didn't even know were still sitting somewhere in my bones, waiting to be disturbed. But when I got that message from Anita, my longtime schoolmate from decades ago, I felt something soften inside me. She wrote me this long, shaky paragraph about how much she missed me, how life had changed since her husband died, how lonely things had become, even though she tried so hard to pretend otherwise. That message hit me in a place I didn't expect, and before I had time to think twice, I found myself booking a flight. I'm a Black American woman who has spent more years in boardrooms than in the sun, and yet something about Africa always hovered in the back of my spirit like a forgotten melody. Going back wasn't just about Anita. It was about something I'd left behind that I hadn't taken the time to name. The moment I stepped onto the plane, I felt both excited and nervous. I may be wealthy, but let me tell you, money does not protect anybody from anxiety. That flight was long. Very long. The kind of long that makes you question every life choice that brought you there. I sat beside a man who snored peacefully with his mouth wide open and drooled on his shirt like he'd paid for the deluxe sleep package. Meanwhile, I watched 2 movies, said a small prayer, ate food I don't think the airline should legally call food, and tried to convince myself I was mentally prepared for whatever waited on the other side. When the flight finally landed, the wave of warm air that hit me as the plane door opened felt like someone had wrapped me in a giant, humid hug. It wasn't bad, just different. I inhaled deeply, letting the scent of dust, earth, and faraway cooking fires fill my chest. Something inside me whispered, "This is going to change you." Customs was, well, customs. I smiled, answered questions, and tried not to look too obviously like someone who had forgotten the rhythm of this place. The officer looked at my passport, then at me, then at the passport again, like he was waiting for the picture to speak. Then he asked me if I came to find a husband. I laughed in a way that was both charming and confused, and he waved me through with a grin so big I knew he enjoyed that joke every single day. Outside, the noise wrapped itself around me instantly. Voices, honking, calls, laughter, movement everywhere. It felt overwhelming and familiar at the same time. Then I saw Anita. My heart squeezed. She looked older, but not in a way that age usually shows itself. Her eyes held something gentle and tired, like life had been chewing at her one small piece at a time. But as soon as she saw me, her face broke into the same mischievous grin she had when we used to steal snacks from the school dining hall and run away before the matron caught us. She ran toward me and hugged me with both arms, squeezing me so tightly I felt my ribs complain. "My sister!" she yelled. "Look at you! You haven't changed at all!" I laughed because that was definitely a lie, but I took the compliment with a smile. She held my hands and stepped back to look at me again. "You look like money," she said straight. "Real, serious money." "Anita!" I whispered sharply, embarrassed. "What?" she shrugged. "Is it a lie? You look like you bought the plane, not just a ticket." I couldn't help but laugh. That humour, that bold, unfiltered honesty was exactly what I had missed. We got into her car, which coughed and wheezed like it had opinions about carrying luggage heavier than its engine. The moment she turned the key, it vibrated so loudly I actually said Jesus under my breath. Anita heard me. "Don't worry," she said confidently. "It only breaks down when I'm alone." "And today?" I asked. "Well," she paused, "let's hope it behaves out of respect for you." I braced myself. The drive from the airport was like a movie. Colours everywhere, people moving like life never paused here. Women balanced baskets of fruit on their heads. Kids ran across the road with fearless confidence, and men sat under shade trees, talking like time was something they owned. Street vendors knocked on the car window asking if I wanted snacks, water, or sunglasses. One man even tried to sell me a live chicken. A whole chicken. The chicken looked at me. I looked at the chicken. Anita laughed so hard the car almost swerved. By the time we got to her house, the sun was beginning to slide down in warm orange streaks. Her home was simple, small, and surrounded by a garden full of stubborn plants, refusing to die despite clear neglect. Everything carried a charm that looked worn but loved. "Home sweet home," she said softly. I hugged her again because I could feel her pride mixed with sadness. Inside, her house smelled like a mixture of soap, dust, and hope. I could see she tried to tidy up, though the effort showed more in her eyes than the actual results. But I didn't care. I wasn't here for perfection. We sat down and talked for hours about school days, about her late husband, about how she had been managing since then. She tried to keep the conversation light, but it slipped into sorrow sometimes, like her grief had sharp edges she kept brushing against accidentally. At one point, she laughed suddenly and said, "Do you remember the day you ate my lunch by mistake and blamed me for forgetting to bring one?" I burst into laughter, covering my face. "Lord Anita, don't remind me! I was hungry!" "You were greedy," she corrected. We laughed until our stomachs hurt. But later, when she went to the kitchen to get something, I heard her sigh, a loud sigh, just the kind that comes from someone carrying more weight than anyone realizes. I stood up, walked toward the window, and watched the neighborhood. Children were still outside playing, even though the sun had nearly disappeared. Music drifted faintly from a house nearby. There was life everywhere, but also a quiet kind of struggle you could almost feel in the air. When Anita returned, she brought me a plate with rice and stew. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't something from a restaurant with a menu longer than a plane runway, but it tasted like home, even though I had never lived here. The power went out mid-conversation, 1 second light, the next complete darkness. I gasped so loudly, Anita choked on her food, laughing. "Welcome to Africa," she said. "If the lights don't go off, are we truly here?" I shook my head, fanning myself. "What are we supposed to do now?" "We wait," she said casually. "Or we talk in the dark." So we talked in the dark, and it was strangely comforting. At night, I lay in her guest room listening to crickets so loud they sounded like they were holding a full concert. I wasn't used to darkness this thick or sounds this bold, but something about it felt real, raw, alive. I thought about Anita, her life, her loneliness, the strength she carried in her shoulders quietly. I was wealthy, successful, independent, but something about her life, even in its hardship, held a sense of community I realized I had been missing for years. Before I drifted into sleep, I whispered a small thank you to the universe for bringing me back here. I didn't know what the next day would bring, but I already knew this trip was going to be sweet, bitter, and everything in between, and I was ready for it. Warm regards to all my wonderful viewers. Thank you for listening, and stay close for part 2.